Thanks so much for joining, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, introducing version 9 of Decisions with ProjectHub. Today, I'm so stoked to be joined by Eric Welmerink, our product manager, and Will Pedersen, our vice president of product and support services. If you've seen any of our webinars, I'm probably a familiar face. My name is Danny Torben. I'm the analyst relations manager, and I'm also good at webinars. So here I am. We're really excited that you joined us today, but before you get started, we've got a couple of plugs that I want to get in. Our deep dive in-person training is global. In fact, as David mentioned in the chat, we just had one in Stockholm, Sweden this week. They're amazing 3-day events for people that are just getting started. We have a track for you. For people that have had some experience in the platform, we have a master's class track. Great opportunities to get together with our founders and developers and engineers and architects, with our prospects and our customers, and take some training in the platform and learn about exciting new use cases. Check us out at decisions.com/events to sign up for the next one, which is in July. The 23rd through the 25th will be back out in Denver, Colorado. That one was a great one last year. And then in October, we will be in Singapore. So make sure that you check those out. And while you will be there, be sure to go ahead and sign up for the next webinars. The first is Conquer Complexity with Adaptive Case Management on Thursday, June the 13th. We'll jump into the fundamentals of case management and demonstrate how Decisions automates the most complex nonlinear processes to ensure accuracy, reduce risks, and reach resolution faster. And then later in June, our partner Datamatics will join us to show the powerful synergy between robotics process automation, RPA, and a business rules engine to reduce manual processes, resources, and risks for insurers. Together, these technologies pave the way to streamline operations for applications, eligibility determinations, claims processing, and so much more. So you can register for all the upcoming events at decisions.com/events. So as we jump into today's talk, I want to let you know you don't have to wait till the end for a Q&A. The chat channel is open. I've got a bunch of folks on here from Decisions as well that can answer all your questions. So don't wait, and I'll try to interject them into the conversation where it's relevant. And so be sure to use the chat channel. A quick agenda for what we're going to cover today, and I'm blasting through this, you guys, because it's a major release and we've got a lot of slides to cover. Normally I talk a little bit slower, but here we go. First, I'll just kind of set the table with a brief introduction to Decisions for people that are new, and then we'll talk about version 9, the role impacts, the features and enhancements that will come across in this new version that just released this week. And then we'll have a demo of some of those features and enhancements, and look at the roadmap for the future of the next release. So what is Decisions? Decisions is a no-code software application development platform that doesn't require you to write a single line of code. And it's based off of the 5 pillars of automation. The first of which is a rules engine. And it simply provides you a system that allows you to define, manage, and execute business rules. It enables businesses to keep logic consistent and centralized. The second pillar is integrations. We give you the ability to weave a connection between all of your apps and systems, breaking down silos and ensuring that data flows smoothly, accurately, and in real time. The third pillar is a workflow manager. It gives you the ability to create, manage, and execute business workflows, allowing tasks to move from one step to another based on predefined criteria. The fourth is process mining. It gives you the ability to examine business processes based on event logs, and helps discovering process patterns, identifying bottlenecks, and suggests improvements. And then finally, it comes with an interface designer. It gives you the ability to design intuitive and efficient experiences for your customers and your users without having to know how to write code. And Decisions is really good at 3 areas of automation. And the first one is the pure business rules or decisioning application. Our rules engine gives you a place to centralize business logic and then expose that logic to business users to edit and maintain using graphical design tools. It gets the stored logic out of stored procedures, web pages, custom code, your team's head, and puts it in a central location where you can easily change it and maintain it without diving into the code. It's enterprise class, capable of millions of transactions per day. The next case is what we call extend and expand. It's really common when we work with customers that already have some major out-of-the-box projects that need to be a part of their automation solution. This could be their CRM systems, ERPs, databases, or other products that are built to handle a part of the process. Decisions is designed to integrate with these existing out-of-the-box solutions and automate special processes that these systems don't do well, especially things like human-in-the-loop approval processes. To do this, we have several ways to integrate with your existing system landscape. We have several out-of-the-box integrations. You'll see some of those listed here. But more importantly, you can connect to anything with open APIs, and most modern systems have that. If you have a specific system that you're wondering about, don't wait. Pop it into chat right now. We'd love to get that question answered for you in real time. Taking the previous step a little bit further, we often act as that orchestration layer between different applications. So if you have several different applications, you have users and data, and you can use decisions as a middleware to bring data in from one application, trigger an activity for a user in another application, and then populate an outcome in yet another. Our most common use case is to act as that orchestration layer between various software applications or services, and then engage end users in workflows that cross those application boundaries. For example, EK Health processes thousands of medical bills daily by integrating with dozens of different external partners. So one final plug, if any of that is interesting to you, please let us know. Hit us at sales@decisions.com, sign up for a demo, spend some time with one of our sales engineers and see if Decisions is the right fit for your business. Learn more about us. Thanks for your patience during that part of the talk today. Let's get to the good stuff. A major release for Decisions this week in version 9. And I'm so glad that I brought along some smart guys to talk about it. First, a really smart guy in the room, Eric Welmerink, from our product team, and also his boss, Vice President Will Patterson. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, happy to be here. Yeah, really appreciate it, man. I'm really excited about version 9. I'm just going to go ahead and dive in. Like I said, Danny said, I'm Eric. I've been here over a decade, but really version 9 is the culmination of several years of kind of vision and work, working closely with Heath Oderman, our CEO, and really the rest of the company to try to really take a major step forward in the way that we conceptualize and build work and decisions. And so with version 9, here's kind of the quick overview of things that the major things we've done. First and foremost is ProjectHub. I'm going to talk mostly about this today and demo this in the tool. But ProjectHub is this idea that we want to give you a really concrete place in the platform where you can put and visualize and audit and see all of your applications and like-minded work together. And so we've created this ability in the tool now to constrain your work inside of these projects, and we're calling it ProjectHub. In addition to that, we've done some major work with our rules engine, specifically the way the rule sets are managed and kind of visualized in the platform, and the way that you write formulas or mathematical expressions. We put a brand new designer there as well. And we're going to talk a little bit about those later in the slides. Some additional new features, we've added some things for our enterprise customers with running things in a clustered environment. We've added a new RPA module with one of our partners, Datamatics. As Danny mentioned earlier in the slides, we're doing a webinar with them later this month, I believe, or next month. And so now we have an out-of-the-box RPA vendor that we recommend and partner with to give you that capability, natively into the Decisions platform. And then some additional services and steps and some process mining insights you'll gain as well when you upgrade to 9. Some enhancements across the board. You'll see a general styling update. We've improved the colors and the context and some of the iconography. We've just done a big restyle and update on, including also the way that we generate and automate producing out project documentation, where you right-click and see actions in the tool, some of the default styling as well. And I think you'll see a lot of that when I actually dive into version 9 and show you some of those things. But those are some of the things you can look forward to when you upgrade to version 9. So yeah, let's first kick it. Next slide. Let's talk a little bit about who this impacts. What is the version 9 for you specifically? And there's really kind of 3 key groups of users what version 9 you can see some major improvements for. First and foremost, new developers. One of the main struggles we've seen with decisions is initially getting into the tool and starting to build out and scope out a project or work in the platform. By isolating things into projects, we have a really clear, streamlined process that gets new users into the tool in a safe place to start building and testing and using all of the things that Decisions has to offer. So by putting kind of these projects and allowing these kind of high-walled, streamlined processes, new users have a much easier way to get into version 9 or to get into Decisions rather and start to build out your processes. Number 2, for all of you experienced developers out there, people who've been in the tool quite a long time, we've reorganized everything for you. So as an experienced dev, you're going to see a much clearer, better organized system that gives you really clear visibility and insight into where your work is, how to get to it, who has access to it, and then most importantly, a way that you can start configuring and defining other parts that tie into your project work. So for example, in previous versions of Decisions, you used to have to take like a CSS file and have an admin update it and then hope a developer goes and applies it to the right forms. Now that's all built into the project. So you can just do it in one place and your experienced developers have a single location to go to absolutely be able to define and create all of the work that contains inside of a single project. And then lastly, we took a huge swing at helping out our project managers who work in the platform. So this is things like being able to determine how the quality of your work in Decisions or who's doing what in the platform. So adding features like little comments called to-dos so that you can actually communicate with developers in the platform and see things like the scoring and the relative over time performance of your projects so that project managers get a little bit insight and information there as well. So a couple other things, if you look at version 9 that you can look forward to, across the board, we've improved some of the underlying architecture by moving from .NET Core 7 to .NET 8. And with that, we've refactored a number of our methods to just boost performance. So across the board, you're going to see really a 15 to 20% improvement kind of generally, where general performance has been improved. Now, some of the bigger areas we've seen that in is in our rules engine. So statement rule execution time. So as you're building out those statement rules and rule sets, the time it takes to actually physically execute those has been improved. And something with truth tables we've noticed is when you have really long tables with several thousand rows, editing those, we've improved the performance there drastically across the board. If you look at the next slide, Danny, I think one of the more exciting things too, especially for kind of our customers that host themselves, is something like startup time improvement. With containers, we've improved it by roughly, just under 50%, about 45%. And our Windows environment startup time is improved by about 74%. So any of our, IT ops folks who are on the call, this just gives you less downtime, quicker deployments, quicker installs, those sorts of things. But even in the platform, some other big improvements we've seen are things with like case or process data creation, where just the time it takes to generate those things and save them off in the database, we've improved by about 50%, which is a huge win for us. So in general, version 9, you're going to get quite a bit of performance boosts as well.
Big numbers, right? Well, that's huge. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've done a ton of work to really optimize case creation time in V9. So if you're doing any case-based thing, that should be substantially faster for you.
I love it. Let's talk about the new stuff.
Yeah,
That makes sense. I love the new stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to focus in a little bit first on projects because I think this is something that's going to be a little bit of a paradigm shift for our users, but it's going to give you tremendous value. So first and foremost, what is what is the purpose of ProjectHub? Why do we do it? I've already talked about it's taking our big folder tree and kind of managing it into these projects. The purpose is first and foremost organization. As we've seen our customers grow their use cases and scale their environments and start to add more and more to our product, having a folder tree that kind of we expected to be self-managed got a little chaotic and got difficult to maintain, difficult to visualize, difficult to find work. And so to simplify and organize that was really the primary goal. How do we get this to be a lot more consistent and allow our customers to just build and scale, not stressing about some of this kind of other folder stuff that we have. Number 2, the big benefit was stability. When you have a big web and kind of chaotic dependencies, ensuring that work is all bundled together and working the way you expect was difficult. So we wanted to improve the way that we compiled our code so that it was consistent with our projects and so that you could take all of your work and move it consistently and deploy it across other environments. Of course, visibility is a really key theme here. You're going to see this a lot throughout the rest of this presentation. But being able to find your work, see how your workflows are running, see all the different places where you're mapping certain inputs across your steps. We want you to be able to find and see your work without having to dig or search or write your own queries or do this work. So we've added a ton of dashboarding and reports and areas that you can go to see how your work's behaving and how it's kind of performing. And then lastly, class 2, settings. We've noticed that in the system folder, we put a lot of things that really are meant for developers. I already mentioned CSS. Some of these other things would be like customizing an email template you're going to reuse, or adding a data variable or a constant to your project. Those are all in the system folder designed for admins when really they were developer level configurations and data you needed to do. So by putting them in the project, you now can do those things as an experienced developer and have a much easier way of kind of ensuring they're part of your project and deployed. And then lastly, auditability and testing. Be able to test your work consistently. And on our roadmap, we have a lot of things around automated kind of scalable testing. So there's a lot there by constraining things into projects that gives us benefit as well. I like the next slide because it gives me a cool visual here. And shout out to Kirsten, who helped me design this kind of diagram. But on the left-hand side, you see with the V8 earlier, this is kind of how we started to see our environments become chaotic, that web that I was mentioning a little bit earlier. It would just be a big folder tree. And as you used work from really stuff that was in a project somewhere else in the portal, it would create a link. And then that project would use something from another project and you create a link. And so as this kind of started to grow and you see these lines cross over to become this web, extracting work out of here, say I wanted to take project A out of an environment and deploy the changes up, became difficult. And I think a lot of our customers have felt kind of the tension of that. And so by moving to 9 and siloing all of our work together, it's really clear who's responsible for the work, where the work lives, and how you can see it performing and all the work that's going on about it. Now, we still love reusability, so you can absolutely create dependencies across those projects. But being able to say this entire work project can depend on or use work from another project still exists, and I'm going to demo that in just a moment. But that's something that's kind of core to our philosophy already, and we wanted to maintain with the project structure. But by cleaning this up, siloing everything, it just gives us a much better way to really keep your work in line and decisions.
Eric, could I answer a question from the audience really quick?
Oh, absolutely, sir.
Alan's got a question. If flows, projects, processes built on old versions of decisions will migrate to the new version of decisions?
Certainly.
Yeah. And the answer is yes. Everything is backwards compatible, right? There is a new format. You do migrate to the new format, and we'll touch or talk about that. But there is no refactor required for any existing project. You will migrate it to the new project structure, but your flows, your forms, your rules, all of the component pieces will remain the same with no intended changes required. So backwards compatibility with V8 and below is designed.
Yep. Good point. Good question.
Great point, boss. Thank you. Yeah, this is just a slight technical note here. I mentioned this a little bit earlier as well with code compile stuff. But yeah, in older versions of decisions, because we had that big major dependency web, when you would do something that would really compile code, like adding a new structure of data or creating an integration to another system, it would have to compile or at least check to compile the entire environment in order to ensure that all of your work was up to date. Which in general, when you, again, as environments scale and you have large amounts of these data structures and integrations, takes time and potentially you're impacting other projects unintentionally. So with version 9, we've isolated all of our compile activities into those projects specifically. So now as you change a data structure, say in project A, it will only compile all of the work and things that are related to project A and not have any impact on project B. So performance of that is improved. But I think more importantly, too, when you deploy your work up to higher environments, if you're running Project B live in production and that's going strong and you're not touching it, you deploy Project A, you now have very strong confidence that none of the compile work or deployment activities that occur will ever touch or impact what Project B is doing. And that just gives you a ton of confidence and stability as you're trying to promote to these higher environments. And that's just out of the box. You don't have to touch anything to get that benefit.
Huge. That's a big one.
Cool. All right. Lastly, a couple features that we think are really strong improvements to the tool that we just won't have time to demo on a short 1 hour webinar. I'll blame Danny for taking time, so that's my reasoning. But
man.
I gotta point the finger to someone, right? But yeah, rule sets. Rule sets number one. Rule sets is we've had this feature forever, and it's one of the most efficient ways to run groups of rules in the decisions platform. And if you're not familiar, all a rule set is the ability to take one or more rules up to an infinite number and have a common input that they are evaluating and some sort of commonality in their output, like scoring all of the rules and adding those numbers together, or finding the max or min of those numbers. And so a rule set has existed for many versions. I can think as far back as 3 or 4, or version 3 or version 4. But we've completely redesigned the management page and the visualization of your rule sets. And so you can kind of see in the screenshot here with this revisualization, it's really clear to see on the left-hand side what your rule sets are, what the subsets of your rules may be. Defining those inputs can be done in line. Seeing how you integrate with them can be done in line. And it's a lot easier to just get to the rule set configuration and data. And on the right-hand side of the slide, you'll see the list of all those rules. And we've added some features here, like being able to toggle those rules on and off directly from this management page. Previously, you'd have to go edit the rule, turn off the toggle feature, save the rule, back out. Now that you can just toggle it straight from here, you just have better control. And of course, drag and drop. So now that people that use our rule sets to run prioritized lists of rules or rules in a specific order, now you can click the edit button and just drag and drop these things around to make sure that order is set. So functionally, not much has changed here, but the experience and the management of your rule sets is drastically improved and reimagined.
I love the toggling. Great idea.
I'm not sure I can give credit for that one. I'll try to think.
I'll take credit for it.
No. I was going to say it's today is me because I don't want to.
Yeah, great idea, Danny. We really appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Oh man. And the next major feature as well, you're going to see iterative improvements on this as we go forth in version 9. Is formulas. We've recognized we have a lot of customers like in the financial space, or even just a lot of customers who work with Excel spreadsheets and are very familiar with writing algebraic expressions or formulas or things inside of there. We wanted to rebuild what we have currently called the expression designer with a brand new formula building experience. So this is, again, kind of rebuilt from the ground up, reimagined, and it moves away from kind of the NCalc mathematical operations and moves more into this Excel-based formula crafting experience. And just like our other designers, what it does is it gives you the ability to drag and drop your formulas in, to set the input values as part of those expressions, create your inputs and outputs. And then I think the most important is the ability to test them directly from here. So as you write your formulas and are adding your inputs, you actually have a built-in kind of debugger experience with sample data and unit tests like we have everywhere, to put in test data, run it, and ensure that your formula you're crafting behaves the way that you expect. And so this is going to be implemented, or this already is implemented directly into the designer experience. So as you're in a rule, and say in your rule, you need to run some of these formulas to source into your rule verbs or your rule execution, you can get it straight from the rule engine. You just click edit, pull up our formula builder, reuse an existing one if you already have created one, or go ahead and use craft this one here. Click save, and it deploys it directly into your rule. And then, of course, that, because we're decisions, that becomes a flow step, and you can use that as a flow step, reusable pieces across anywhere else in your platform. So it really gives you a way to write these sort of complex behaviors, right? These sort of complex functions, test them directly in the tool, reuse them, and implement them very quickly into your rules.
Excel people, can I get an amen? That's also great. This is also really good.
Yeah. I think this is one of the last few. I have a couple more actually. What this one here, for any of our enterprise customers or any of our customers who are really considerate of large batch processing processes, great language. But if you do work with large lists of data, we're talking hundreds of thousands or millions of records that you're trying to process through our workflows. We've added a new step for clustered environments that lets us distribute that work significantly better across all the nodes in the cluster and all the threads that those nodes use. And so previously, where you kind of had to craft this load balancing logic into your flows and try to delegate work appropriately there, we've actually replaced it with a singular step that will do it for you. So you can hand in a large list of data, and it will automatically distribute that across all of your nodes in the cluster and all of the threads on those nodes to ensure that you have the peak performance or the peak processing power applied to these large batch processing jobs. So any end of month job that you have that does large batch processing or any sort of database intake process that takes in millions or hundreds of thousands of records, you're going to see a drastic improvement here to the speed and really configurability of how you can do that.
That's robust.
It's robust. Yeah.
Let's talk about the enhancements.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. Like I said, many of our enhancements you're going to see just kind of natively as I'm in the tool in a few minutes here. So you'll see some color changes. You'll see some iconography changes. One of the things I will have a great chance to demonstrate, though, is our project documentation. This is something you can do today. You can go to any folder and generate a really, really simple report that lists all the kind of designer stuff in that folder, the flows and the rules, and it gives you the inputs and outputs, and kind of just lists it in a big kind of report, just scale, the scrolling report. It's obnoxious. In version 9, now that we have everything in projects, you can actually create that documentation, that self-documenting process for everything that's contained inside of a project. And we've amped it up dramatically with the type of stuff that you see in that project documentation. So when you generate for a project, you're going to see the description, the name, all of the modules and dependencies that you have a part of there, any of the integrations you've enabled on there and what some of those basic settings are. And then, of course, you will also see all of the flows and rules, their inputs and outputs, their subflows, their dependencies. And it's a way to quickly generate this document, that will really try to give you as close to as we can, kind of a description and project process documentation. And so that's something that you can do with any project today. You just right click on the project, say generate documentation, and you'll get that right away. All right, demo time. Yeah, a couple of things I want to just highlight on the demo for you to kind of put you in the right mind frame or mindset of why we're doing the things we're doing and what we're aiming for. Number one is, of course, visibility. Reorganizing the tree and putting things into projects is great, but also giving you valuable insights and information about that work is something we're really striving to do. And you're going to see it again on the roadmap a little bit and what we talk about. We're also targeting a lot of fixes of this throughout the life cycle of 8 to continue to give you insights and visibility and information about your work. It's something that we really want to make significantly better. Number 2 is this idea of health. We have, with all of our developers and years of experience of decisions, know really what it takes when you're building flows and rules, the quality of the work that you're building. So out of the box in version 9, we're going to apply logic that evaluates and examines your flows and rules and forms and sees whether or not you're following best practices or maybe building in patterns that are not recommended. And so that's something we have out of the box that you can apply to your projects, but also we're going to be looking at ways to improve over the next few releases. And of course, deployments. This is something we've been harping on several years now. Projects gives us a huge leg up on deployments, being able to have declared dependencies and those sorts of behaviors. And again, something we're going to be continuing to strive and work towards in a little bit. So
Could I answer a question here?
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Do we have to update the repo server to V9 before we can check in a legacy V8 project that's been converted to V9? And yes, you do need to get the repo server to match the dev and prod versions when you are doing your upgrades. No difference there from any prior decisions version, where the major version of the repo needs to match the actual application servers as well. So yes, that pattern continues on into V9 and in the future.
Great question.
Thanks, boss.
All right, enough
Danny.
chit chat. Show us the good stuff.
Let me go ahead and make sure I click the right thing. And there we go. All right, cool. So I'm in version 9 now. I'm going to walk through a bunch of stuff. Will, please feel free to interrupt me to ask questions or to add commentary. But to start, when you first log into Decisions, the thing you'll notice right away is that there's this brand new tab on the left-hand side. This is where your projects are going to live. You can create projects from here, see existing projects. Now I already have a number of them in place. And this is where you can start to import and work on migrating your work from one environment to another. Now, most of these projects are actually from our app store. So you'll see some familiar names here from things that we've done. But you're going to get this view. It's going to give you some quick oversight information about those projects. Now, this is limited with permissions, so you'd have to have access to see this. But if you'll be able to see quickly here how many validations issues you potentially have. If you have any to-dos, which to-dos is the new feature I'll talk about in just a moment, and then the overall calculated health score for that project. Now, all of this is customizable, but if you go ahead and click into one of these projects, I'll go into the support query one, you're going to get this view here. Now, if I were a new user, there'd be some wizard-like icons to help drive me to create new items, but this is an existing project, so I could start looking at here. But first and foremost, we're going to have this kind of front-facing information page that gives you quick insighted information about your project. So it gives you the name, gives you the description, the calculated health score, and we have this idea of what are the primary 1 to 2 things that really are the main entry points into your flow. What's kind of the most important thing that you need for your project in order to run. And so here I've just picked in the support kind of creation inquiry flow for this project. And so that's the main thing that I see on this list, but I could add additional ones or remove these as needed. These tiles are all actionable, so you can click into there. And one of my favorite ones here is unit testing. This is the feature that will go in and look for any unit test for all items inside of your project and be able to run them together with the action at the right in batch. So I can click run all unit tests. I'll see that I have 5 total, 4 passed, 1 failed, no errors. And I can actually start driving into these flows and rules and things that I have on my project to see the insights and how the unit tests executed. So my supporting query flow unit test passed, and I can see that there's 4 unit tests on this distribute sport tickets flow where 1 failed and 3 passed. And what's great about all of our dashboards here is, of course, I can also just start to take action. I can go edit the unit test data or edit the flow directly and start to test it and understand why potentially this unit test failed. The error message here is pretty clear. My evaluation rule phrase is bad because I intentionally broke it, but at least it'll give me some insight and quick information on how to do that. But the unit test tab is here to give you just a really quick, simple way and location to go start running all of your unit tests. All entities is this tab is a direct answer to a question from Heath, who's our CTO, who always would ask the question, how do I find this form that's a part of this process? And in the old folder tree, you're searching in the search box, you're trying to find folders, you think you may know where it is. But in the new world, you can come to your project, click all entities, filter by specific types of items in your project, and just go find it right away. Like I already have this filtered by flows, so I know right away that of the 20 entities in my project, 5 of them are workflows. And again, actionable, I can start to take work, or I can start to do work on them right away. And then the last 2 tabs, to-dos. To-dos are really cool. I mentioned this briefly in the slides, but to-dos are the way for you to create little tiny communication points within a project, within the tool, anywhere in the portal, really. And we're going to work to expand this to include this on things like flow steps themselves within the workflows. But the idea is from anywhere, from a folder, from a flow. Maybe I'll go to a flow and do this as well. But I can go create these to-dos, which will give people a note and a comment on the project for them to go do something. So for example, I already had one in there. Maybe I need help, setting up SMTP, my email step. I don't know the SMTP settings. So I say, hey, Danny, can you please configure this step? If I could spell. And I can go ahead and tag people. Now, Danny, you're not in my environment, so I can go ahead and tag Will here. Will's going to get notified that he has a task here and something to do. I can see that it's assigned to him. And you can think of this as just a really small to-do list type task. This is not a full assignment where I'm trying to send him, robust email communication, have him reply with steps. We have all that. That's just in tasks. This is a way for him, developer to say, okay, great. I went ahead. I'm going to go ahead and set that up. It's cleared off my list and we're good to go. What's really cool about this is this does have the ability, let me go into this folder here. Say I go into a specific rule or flow for this one. I have this view file flow. If I go ahead and add a to-do here and tag Will and say, this is the flow I need help with, please, sir. I notice if you give Will kind titles and language, he's more likely to respond. But if I had that here,
go.
I'm going to say that. But I can come here, and when I look at this to do, he actually has a link directly to that item. So he can click that item, go straight into the flow where I added the to do, and start to do work that I've asked him to do. And so again, kind of project manager type overview site, things where developers can communicate better with each other. Very cool. Last one is issues. We have portal-wide issues today. You can actually see all of your system validations over on the left-hand side. But if you have an environment with 50 projects, that number is large and hard to examine. So we've removed, or rather not removed, we've moved all of the project-specific validation and issues into this project dashboard. So I can come into here, find a flow, and see exactly what the issue is. There's 2 warnings on this distribute support tickets because I have no mapping set for these 2 values. So that is something that I could come in here and see. I can edit this flow directly and make updates to it and see my issues list drop. But these will be things like flow validations, rule validations, compile errors, things of those natures that you'd really want to look at and resolve prior to like deploying or doing something along those lines.
A quick question, Eric. How do you switch to portal view?
You're getting a little bit ahead of me. Portal view is something that we've gone away with a little bit. I'll move this up in the presentation to here. So you may have noticed that when I log in, everything's blue. We've gotten rid of the bright orange Designer Studio, and kind of this idea that Designer Studio and User Portal were separate environments is gone. And with that, by putting things in project, we imagine that all developer work is in projects. If you're building flows, editing rules, you're a developer, you're a designer, you will have access to some or all of a project. But there's also a large number of users that just want to consume work that developers build and don't necessarily need the project level access in order to say, look at my support tickets. And so for that, we've gotten rid of the user portal and added this new public folder idea. And public folders where from any project, you can create and expose pages and actions and dashboards or workflow catalog items directly to other users without giving them access into the project. So for example, if I did want to create, I think I do have a support ticket dashboard that I've created. I can create a folder here and say, hey, this folder is publicly accessible. Well, what people going to do with this folder? Well, I'm going to let them view this inquiry. Okay, I do have one. Good. This inquiry dashboard, right? I can click that and see it here. So now I see it in the project. I see it as a public folder. And if I jump back to my folder tree, there it is. As long as you have access to it, you still have to assign people permissions to this. But now, if you're just in the all users group, you won't see this project tab because you haven't been granted access to project. You'll still see the folder tree as normal. And anything that's been put in those public folders that you've been granted access to, you'll be able to go in and see. So it really, this idea that you had to create something and then expose it just to the end user portal and then add permissions to it and switch environments to go look was really kind of a lot of steps for a really simple process. Now you just throw it in the public folder and make sure people have access, and that's it. People can get to it.
That's so much cleaner.
I love that.
Nice.
I think so.
Keep going.
Cool. I will. Make it easy. All right. So that's public folders. I was going to talk about that a little later. Got it ahead of the time now. So this is the main overview. Again, you'll also see another tabs in the upper right. This is improving the visibility and the sorts of things we want our users to do. I'm going to skip health for a minute and talk about dependencies because I've mentioned this on the slides. I want to make sure this is abundantly clear. Now, when you build a project in Decisions, in order to utilize work from other projects or to share work across environments, someone who's an administrator to the project will have to come into here and be able to define what that dependency or interaction is. So if I come here, for example, I can see that my project is already using one thing from the employee onboarding project. I can add it to the integration wizard test project. And you'll also notice at the top two, in order to enable functionality from modules, I also can do that at the project level. So I can install as many modules as I want, but in order to use them in my project, I'll need to come in here, specify that that's something I want to add, and then I'll see that add as a dependency in here. The moment I do that, all of my workflows will have the iCal steps and the iCal, report sources and all the other things that come with our modules, but they don't get turned on until the moment you enable it, which gives you a lot of better control over what work and things you get in your project, what people can use. What's also really great about this is you can click into this icon and I could say, hey, you're depending, my project depends on employee onboarding, and I'm using one item out of there. It's this account creation info input form. And I can go ahead and see what that looks like.
Let's pause there just for a quick second and say, like, it sounds like table stakes, but that is a net new thing for us. Like, you can now see not just item level dependencies, but now you can actually see project level dependencies And you can see what specific items in one project are used by another project. And for us, the designers and the developers who are in decisions working every day, those problems can be really difficult to detangle if you're coming in after someone else, or you're sort of cleaning up for someone else, and you're trying to figure out how are these two things related. There was no really clean way to see that. And part of the win here for the higher walls between projects and these declared dependencies is this new insight, these new views that you get. It makes the maintainability, the quality of life for our designers a lot better. So just add a couple extra sort of like hoorahs there on that, that small dialogue.
I like that.
I know. I feel like I should shout hooray or something.
Some enthusiasm.
But yeah, sorry. Cool. Wonderful. Yeah, one more thing I just want to show here, and this project is not the best to show it with, so I'm actually going to switch over to my integration wizard test project. And you'll see this is an example of a kind of a smaller project. There's no to-dos, no issues, and I haven't really configured any of those primary entities yet. But one of I think the really cool brand new features as well is being able to view very quickly which items and decisions you've built, which flows and rules and reports that you've exposed as a consumable service for other systems. And so now if you take a rule or a flow and you say, hey, you can call this as a service, you can come to this integrations tab and see all of the things here listed very cleanly. And I think more importantly, be able to dive into them in detail and do some cool things like test them directly from this window. So I can actually put any of these into a quick test mode. I can change the variables here, choose which type of API method I want to call. And I won't go too deep into the weeds here, and actually execute it and get my sample output on the right-hand side. So being able to find your flows and rules that are exposed as a service and inline test them in batch very quickly is a huge, huge improvement to the way we've had to do it in the past, which is you had to find the flow and open this brand new tab that had the integration wizard. You also can edit the flow directly from here. You can pop open the full experience. If you need more customizable integration settings, you can still pop that window up. And then lastly, a really important feature here as well is you can download the definition of any of these things individually as Postman, Swagger, or JMeter formats, or even the entire project. So if you create a whole project that is a series of endpoints you want another system to call, you can then say, go download all of those call definitions in like Swagger and hand that to another system. And they have that standardized format to very quickly integrate back to us. And so it's just a way for people who are creating flows and rules as endpoints to get interacted with significantly faster than we have in the past. And so for all of our customers with those use cases, this is a tremendous win for you. All right, cool. 16 minutes. Well, I gotta book it a little bit. We're gonna talk about at least two more concepts that I think are very, very important here. First is gonna be health. I've mentioned this several times. I'm gonna go talk about it a little bit more detail. Health is this idea that, again, we have, let me find a flow. We have a series of best practices that we've identified that we can tell whether or not your flow being built or your flow being designed is either following best practices for maintainability or really for performance and scale over time is going to be one that is really healthy in that sense. And so we have a series of about 15 to 20 rules that we've, automated rules that we've built into the system that allows us to interrogate and see, hey, how is the flow you're building compare against these standardized practices? And so if I open this one here, I change priority flow, I can see that I have invalid paths, that I have inputs I've declared and I'm not using. There's 0 unit tests, and therefore this flow score has dropped to a 58. I have other flows I built a little bit better, like my one down here that's 88. But this gives you an idea very quickly at a project manager level, how is my developers, what is the quality of the work my developers are doing? Now this process is very simple. If I come into here and say add a description, like this flow will will allow a user to view a form and change the priority of a support ticket. I don't know if that's a great description, but it's something. If I just save and close this, I should notice immediately my score jumps to 66, right? My description property that kind of evaluated for the health score jumped back up to 100. And so this is something that, you get out of the box, and we'll sum it up for the entire project and allow you to see we're going to implement this as part of like our check-in and commit process, so that as someone's committing and say an owner needs to approve that, they'll see the scores over time of how these things are impacted and what's going on there.
Quick
Now,
question.
I saw
Quick question on that.
Go, Danny.
Did you see it?
I see it. You can ask though. You're already talking.
All right, cool. I like the gab. You know me. Justin had a great question. Can you set your own project health parameters?
Yeah. Currently, initial release of 9, no. But we have already designed or implementing in an early release of 9, I believe 9.1 or 9.2, the ability to write your own rules here, or write your own logic to apply to this health score. So if you have standard business practices that you want to apply to all of your flows and rules, absolutely you can add that. You can toggle ours off, you can write your own, and then you can really customize this health score over time to be really impactful for your business. So yes, that is something we are adding immediately to the product, and something that's you're going to be able to do right away.
That's awesome. Very cool. Thanks, Justin. Keep going.
Cool. I'll keep going. So that's health. I really have one major thing I want to talk about here, because it changes the way, especially for experienced developers, kind of interact with projects. And that's going to be, you'll see here, this manage folder. This manage folder is a way for us to take all of the settings and things that typically we'd have administrators do, but really are developers, and put them in a single location to do. In addition to that, this is where you'll also get all of those visibility kind of reports interactions I talked about, like being able to see all of the step level mappings of all of your flows, right? You can see that for your project, see where the things are mapped and where they're being used. And so I'm going to dive through this a little bit and try to leave some time for you, Danny, to make sure at the end we have some questions and we're good to go. But you'll see things here like user activity with a brand new dashboard that kind of walks you through this. Or this is actually just project activity. This is not user activity. But this will show how many flows have been run and rules have been run over the past, X window of time. I can see the step level executions, how many actual thread jobs have been started, which API calls have been called in and out. And this is all filtered by the project. I can start to see the activity here about what's going on inside of here. I could even go deeper and see specifically what users are doing, who's logged in, what to-dos they've been working on. So there's 2 pending to-dos and 1. You'll see that yesterday there were 0, and today there's quite a few to-dos, because this is my environment I was working on this morning. But really the important point here is the visibility to see all of the different activity and things that are occurring from a project standpoint as a project developer is massively, massively improved, and something that we think gives you a ton of value, in the sense that you're not searching and hunting for these things or spending long hours trying to diagnose them. If we look into the health,
Eric, if I could give you a second to catch your breath and just add back to the user's activity report. 2 things. There's obviously we're giving you health now. And that means that instead of just taking your developer's word that, hey, things are solid, you've now got objective measures of health, with the ability shortly in the next 2 to 3 months to fully configure what that health logic looks like. And because the design time and everything's so vertically integrated in decisions, now you can start reporting on activity in a way you never have before. Obviously, developer velocity, developer engagement, these are hard problems in the software space. How do I know if a developer is actually doing enough work, right? How am I getting enough value out of the work from those individuals? Designer element modification date, that chart, our data is not showing us great. You can actually see the number of elements modified by user, by day, over time. And now you can start to get really quality reporting. Hey, like who's my most my busiest developer, who's my not busiest developer, who's doing the most work, who's editing the most forms, who's editing the most flows, a whole new level of detail in terms of the activity being done by your development team on your project or projects is now available to you when you take this new charting with this new sort of designer level auditing that we've added. Historically, we've always let you audit the data of the process. You can see if a case name changes from A to B, if someone adds a document to a folder. Now we've added auditing to the project level. Now I'm looking at the changes in the project over time, making those changes reportable and making that data available to me so I can really identify, is the project velocity keeping up with what my project plan says, what my expectations are, and all these other things. And this is just the first shot in us taking the fact that we own the entirety of the design time and empowering our product owners, our project managers, our executive stakeholders with the level of detail that we think that they want to have. Obviously, the design time's fast, but what are we doing to support that other persona, the people that have to go report to the board, to the owners that say, hey, like, we are on target, we are off target. Why are we off target? We're giving you the insight into those things in a way we never have before.
Yeah. Very well said, boss.
There's a question here from Carlos regarding health. Do you include or will have cybersecurity checks? That is a great question, Carlos. Not something that we are thinking about out of the box. This is like the system checking itself, not the system being checked by some other third-party tool. So we may have to look at that as a roadmap inclusion at some point. But that's a great question.
Yeah. That is a good one.
All the good questions.
Please go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, good. No, yeah, I'm checking the clock, so we're winding down on time. So there's just a couple things I want to really be sure to highlight here. Underneath this kind of health grouping of things, you'll be able to see like this is diving into actually some of the more detailed views of what those health scores are really trying to represent. Like, how well is your data, structured? What are the data structures you've had? How are they compiling? You can come into here and find quickly the logs and filter them out by category or how many log events are coming inside of here. I can look at my cache sizes for this project and those sorts of things. I think one of the more valuable ones here, like this project auditing kind of subfolder, allows me to see all of the mappings that are set on all of my steps in my project. So if I wanted to find specifically where a data variable is being used, we've now given you a place in a report to go do that, to get the visibility very quickly without having to try to go dig through all of your flows and find the data or look at a dependencies report and then go search the flows manually. It's all going to be reportable and visible right here. So all of these sort of different folders on the left-hand side are meant to drive you into kind of the deeper understanding of your health of your project and to get that valuable insight. And so you'll see most of those under the health category here. And then just the last couple before I kick it back to you, Danny, because I do have a roadmap slide I just want to highlight very quickly. You can set up your integrations for your project. So now, kind of like we have developers who want to then go ahead and add a database integration. You can do it straight from the project rather than needing system administration behavior or permissions rather. And if you look at this configuration tab, this is where you're going to find a lot of those things that I mentioned, like creating a project constant versus a system constant, where you used to go create a system-wide piece of data that can be reused as a data member in your flows. You can now do that isolated specifically to projects. And once you create them here, you can have confidence that it's tied directly to the project and will get deployed consistently across your higher environments. And that's the same for our lookup lists and our suggestion lists and any sorts of other things here, or even things like your CSS templates and email templates, which I mentioned on the slides. And so this manage folder is really meant to give you much better visibility and control for developers who need to actually do work on the project without having to navigate around the portal or do a bunch of manual work to go find it. And I think what Will mentioned is really important. This is our first stab at this to really give you those improvements, but it's something we're committed to throughout the life cycle of 9. It's something we're going to continue to work on, push through and improve, and make enhancements to over time. Oh man, I wish I had another hour. That's probably all I got time for as a quick overview into version 9. I'm gonna stop sharing and kick it back to you, Danny, because I know we have at least one more slide I got to talk about, but also want to make sure we give you time to wrap things up.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just jump right into it. What lays on the horizon for ProjectHub?
Yeah, I think those themes that I mentioned are you're really gonna see kind of laid out here. The 3 major themes are going to be visibility into your projects, health and kind of making sure you're working and building to scale, and then of course deployments. And so you'll see under the red banner kind of focusing in on project deployments, the customized health scores. That was the question that was asked. Yes, that's on the roadmap. It's already designed and is being developed as we speak. We're also working on something really neat that I love, which is proactive recommendations in your platform from our support team. So you can connect your environment to our support team, and they can actually view from their side and run rules against and understand your project and provide recommendations proactively rather than having to submit a ticket and say, hey, I'm seeing this error in the logs a lot. What should I do? We can see that error first and say, hey, we see this error a lot. You should go fix this flow. And you'll see that recommendation in the tool. You also can create support tickets from those recommendations and schedule calls right away. So being able to close the gap between your environment and what our support teams are attempting to do with it, we're going to just connect those two things together and make it much simpler for you to get those insights and recommendations and value from our support team. You'll see a lot here around deployment. I've talked about this at length, but having better comparison of two items in the tool, so that, you know, a really historical version. So when I make a change to a rule, how can I put that side by side with the older version and see the differences? Brand new compare utility, both graphically and in JSON text format, is what you're going to get, so you can see those things and export them and kind of make that a part of your change management process. And then, of course, moving more towards the CI/CD kind of pipeline behavior, which is pretty standard in the industry. We're going to be molding ourselves into that and making sure that it's really simple for you to create those sort of promotion pipelines and logic and rules around it. Yeah, I think the last thing I really haven't talked a lot about that I'll just mention here, you guys can take a look at this slide, or please feel free to ask questions, is in the product enhancements category. We're doing a lot with AI, and we have our team right now developing quite a bit of kind of parallel AI functionality. And so the ways you'll see this play out in the tool in version 9 is, first and foremost, we're going to have a common AI dashboard and common AI functionality where you can choose between any of the vendors that you prefer and go ahead and actually just enable them on and off for all of your workflow processes. So for example, you can write a process and plug in any of the API components like generating text or things that you want, but then switch your vendor at a project level. And so you can have different vendors applied to the kind of AI projects or AI steps that you're utilizing. And then we're going to extend that into like capabilities within the tool. You guys saw me type out a long description on my fields. We're going to integrate AI directly in places like that, where I can just generate the description from the flow definition, or my project documentation. I can generate insights directly from those sorts of things as well. I can craft unit tests by a single click button. You can plug in your preferred AI vendor and click a button to create your project's unit tests, and then obviously verify them and make sure they behave the way they expected. And
Yeah,
so our
Eric,
AI.
if I could,
Oh yeah,
also
yeah,
sorry, man.
please.
If
No,
I could jump
go
in.
ahead.
Like the choose the vendor of your choice piece sounds like very sort of table stakes, but I mean, if you look at the number of large language models that are being deployed, they're going to be, this is going to be an arms race for the near future. And these things, they're going to release a new and better version every other month, and they're going to be fighting with each other to sort of get there, right? And so what we're doing is we're creating an interface where you will be able to replace at will a large language model. So if you're using, say, whatever, the new Chat GPT 4.0, but then some Claude version 4, right, or Gemini version 10 comes out, and you know that it's substantially better, you'll be able to change that with like a configuration change. Right, you'll go to a settings object, you'll select the new provider, and now all of your large language model integrations point at it with no design time changes required. So we really think that the approach here is to abstract the design of your project away from the large language model that you're using, because we think there's going to be so much work and so much improvement happening on that side, that the best thing we can do is provide a layer that you can swap between these things at will. Of course, you could A/B test them against one another, but you can then decide, hey, this one's better, let's switch to that. And then you can keep pace with the largest models, incurring no technical debt, no change request for that. So that is the essence of our generic AI sort of module that we're intending to release in the next like 4 to 8 weeks for version 9. With that, it takes us to 2:00. Sorry to steal your last 2 minutes of thunder there, Eric.
Yeah,
Danny,
thanks, man. That's my 2 minutes. You're killing me. That was amazing, guys. Nothing better than a major version release webinar. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Again, my name is Danny Torben. I'm the Analyst Relations Manager. Thanks so much for joining, everybody.
Thank you.
Chase, play us out with some great tunes. Thank you guys so much. Hey, there's the link right there in the chat.